Lewis Hamilton gave an interview to L'Equipe, which we will analyze together in today's video. He clarified some points about his first year with Ferrari, mentioned who he talked to the most, and shared his thoughts on the season and the upcoming year. We'll also look at Vasseur's statements before the Baku weekend, along with Ferrari's preparations. We need to talk about Red Bull, and we also need to talk about the new front wing regulations for 2026. And let's not forget Cadillac, as there's much to discuss about Perez's simulation, with Domenicali also looking for new commissioners. Now let's dive into the details. Don't forget to leave a like if you enjoy the videos, subscribe and turn on notifications so you don't miss any Formula 1 and Ferrari themed videos. Let's get started. I haven't spoken with either Alonso or Vettel about Ferrari. I don't talk much with Fernando, while Seb has always been a great friend and support. This is what Lewis Hamilton said in an exclusive interview with L'Equipe. I intended to call Vettel during the summer break, and I will soon. I haven't done it yet because I didn't want to have preconceived notion. After 6 to 8 months of experience, I'll have a clearer picture, and then I'll discuss it with him. These words clearly show the moment Hamilton is experiencing. In fact, Ferrari hasn't had a world champion in the team from 2021 to 2024. There were Charles Leclerc and Carlos Sainz, the latter chosen by Binotto instead of Sebastian Vettel. Before that, Vettel took over Alonso's legacy in 2015, but neither managed to bring Ferrari back to the title. Hamilton, however, arrived in 2025 with an enormous track record, 7 world titles, a record he shares with Michael Schumacher. But his adventure with Ferrari has proven much more complicated than expected. And here's the point. The fact that Lewis didn't want to talk to Vettel right away is significant because Seb knows Ferrari's reality very well. From 2015 to 2020, he experienced joys and great disappointments and is probably the best person to advise Hamilton on handling the pressures of Maranello, internal relationships, and the external environment. At the same time, Lewis wants to build his own direct experience without influence and preconceived notions. From my perspective, this is a smart choice. Hamilton knows that Ferrari is a unique team with enormous political weight, a level of media pressure that doesn't exist elsewhere, and above all, an endless expectation for results. It's right that, before listening to Vettel's experience, he builds his own. Only after 6 to 8 months, when he has first-hand experience of technical and human dynamics, can he truly benefit from a discussion with Sebastian Vettel. Technically, his season so far demonstrates this. Hamilton has struggled to interpret the SF25, a car very different from the Mercedes with which he won. Ferrari gave him a competitive but inconsistent package, and the results have not met expectations. It's clear that the adaptation is tougher than expected. In summary, Hamilton is experiencing firsthand what many champions have gone through before him. Racing with Ferrari is an honor, but also an enormous burden. Talent alone is not enough. The ability to withstand the context is needed. And the fact that he will soon talk to Vettel shows that Hamilton is not just driving, but also wants to deeply understand what it means to be a world champion wearing the red suit. And already this weekend, we expect a lot from Lewis Hamilton, who needs to do better than in the last Grand Prix in Monza, Italy, where he had to fight back. While here in Baku, we want to see a Hamilton starting further ahead, maybe in the top 5. Regarding the fact that he hasn't opened up to either Vettel or Alonso, I expected it. Hamilton, before making any decision, takes a lot of time, wanting to evaluate all decisive factors. He respects Alonso greatly as a champion, but they don't have a friendship. On the contrary with Vettel, yes, and the relationship between Hamilton and Vettel has improved a lot over the years. Right in Baku in 2017, there was the famous clash between the two, caused by Sebastian Vettel himself. From then on, they managed to reconnect and become friends. And Ferrari's goal in Baku is to achieve the 5th consecutive pole position with Charles Leclerc. To do this, Ferrari has installed a hybrid solution on the rear wing that takes the package seen at Spa, Belgium, but adapted to the specific needs of Azerbaijan. Let's see what it's about. Oliver Hellwig, Ferrari's performance engineer, explained it clearly. Here you need to minimize drag to have a higher top speed, but you also need downforce to brake hard and have grip in slow corners. And so comes Ferrari's hybrid rear wing. The main profile is similar to Spa's, but there's more downforce compared to Monza, yet it's still lightened. There are squared external supports of the movable wing to maximize load in that area, and the flap is trimmed and shortened with a small central V and a reduced section towards the end. A choice that lowers drag on the straight without sacrificing too much stability. An almost handcrafted solution, tailor-made for Baku, because besides the aerodynamic compromise, there's another issue: tires. Pirelli fears that the front tires could lose up to 40 degrees of temperature before the breaking point after the finish line. And this is exactly where Ferrari needs to play its cards. Will it prioritize maximum speed or have more grip in the corners? One thing is certain, the SF25 must exploit every detail to stay in the fight up front, at least for the podium. There are many rivals, but the red has always shown to be strong here in Baku. We also need to comment on some extra news regarding the issue of Wolf Zimmermann and Lars Schmidt, two engine specialists heading to Audi from Ferrari. But let's look in detail at why this is such important news for Ferrari. The truth is that both Wolf Zimmermann and Lars Schmidt had already completed their work on Ferrari's 2026 project before leaving. In other words, the Ferrari engine is already well underway and is not at all behind as some would have you believe. And there are many rumors circulating in the technical market. At a time when all teams are pulling out all the stops to secure experienced engineers on the new power units, discrediting Ferrari becomes a strategy. Rumors of delays are spread to scare talents and convince them to sign with other teams. It's a political game we've seen 1,000 times in Formula 1. Just think of how certain rumors over the years have influenced the choice of drivers and engineers. And here comes the interesting part. In Maranello, there is great confidence in the work of the team led by Enrico Gualtieri. The 2026 engine is already in an advanced stage, and the data from the bench provides reassurance. The real challenge will be integrating the new power unit with the chassis and with the aerodynamic rules that will change everything from 2026. The cars will be lighter, more compact, and with 50% of the power entrusted to the electric part. Politics in the paddock never dies. Today, the aim is to build a narrative of a Ferrari in difficulty, while Mercedes is painted as the absolute favorite. But the reality could be less predictable. Ferrari's engine development is solid, and the departures have not left real technical gaps. Certainly, there remains the battle to retain figures like Diego Tondi, who is on the edge, another prized piece that many teams are courting. From my point of view, the picture is clear. We are facing a war of perceptions. In Formula 1, the technical result is fundamental, but equally important is the credibility built off the track. If you make the paddock believe you are behind, you risk losing key figures. If instead you show confidence, you attract talents, and this is the ground on which much of the challenge for 2026 will be played. Ferrari must not fall into the trap. It must secure its team and continue to work silently and arrive at the 2026 tests with the numbers in hand. At that point, political rumors will no longer matter. And speaking precisely of 2026, the first simulations on the new cars have also emerged. Let's see what the data tells us. After the Pirelli tests dedicated to the new tires, Mario Isola confirmed that the margin between the leading team and the trailing one can reach up to a 20% performance difference. An enormity if we consider that in Formula 1 often a few tenths decide the fate of a championship. Ferrari participated attentively in these tests, also trying the movable front wings right after the Hungarian GP together with Alpine. It's an important detail because these aerodynamic solutions will be central in 2026 to reduce resistance on straights and maximize speed without compromising too much on cornering load. According to Mario Isola, the simulations delivered by June 30th are still imprecise, but they serve Pirelli to start selecting the compounds. Only in December will more accurate data arrive. Meanwhile, the Milanese company is working on a wider range of options precisely to cover the uncertainties between the various projects. Meanwhile, in the paddock, there is talk that Mercedes is already very advanced, especially on the engine side, and could arrive in 2026 with a significant technical advantage. But the truth is that almost all teams have now abandoned the development of current cars and are focusing all resources on the new regulations. From my point of view, the 20% difference data should be taken with caution. It's true that simulations show huge gaps, but historically on the bench and CFD, the numbers tend to shrink when the cars actually hit the track. What is clear, however, is that there will be a very wide initial gap, and those who start behind risk staying there for a long time because the 2026 regulations drastically reduce development areas. For Ferrari, the priority is not only to have a competitive engine on which there is confidence filtering from Maranello, but also to quickly find the right chassis aerodynamics compromise. Vasseur has said it, we have improvements in every area, but we need to react quickly. In other words, 2026 will not be a transition year. Either you start strong right away, or you risk burning an entire cycle. In summary, the Pirelli data tells us of an uncertain future full of variables. But one thing is certain, whoever gets the first car of 2026 right could have a huge advantage destined to last for years. And this time, Ferrari cannot afford to miss the appointment. And let's talk about a real problem of the 2026 cars with the movable front wings. Let's talk about the cooling of the front tires on the straight. In fact, some teams have reported to Pirelli that the active aerodynamics of the upcoming single-seaters might make it difficult to keep the tires in the right temperature window. From 2026, both the front and rear wings will be equipped with active aerodynamics with effectiveness 3 times greater than the current DRS. This means that on the straight, the wings open and drastically reduce as the aerodynamic load increases and decreases, allowing for higher top speeds on the straights. But there's a side effect. Less downforce means less tire pressure on the asphalt, therefore less deformation and less heat generated. Added to this is the very high speed that accentuates cooling due to the air effect, and the result is that the front tires risk losing over 30 degrees on the longest straights. This already happens in Baku, and there is the danger of falling out of the window and compromising grip when entering a corner, leading the car towards understeer. The problem doesn't concern the rear tires, which often suffer from overheating. The real issue is at the front and not on all circuits. Slow tracks like Budapest won't have difficulties, but on high-speed tracks with long straights, the issue becomes serious. From 2026, the rims will no longer be standardized. Each team will be able to design them, opening up a new development front. The thermal connection between brakes and rims, in fact, can become a tool to transfer heat to the front tires and keep them at temperature. The FIA has already introduced constraints to limit these exchanges, but history teaches that teams will still find room for maneuver. Those who can exploit the rims as a thermal management tool could have a significant advantage. And here we see the complexity of the new 2026 rules. It won't be enough to make a powerful engine or a light chassis. New problems like tire temperature will also need to be solved. It's a classic Formula 1 scenario. There's a technical solution, namely movable wings that solve one problem, efficiency, but open up another, cooling. Personally, I think it will be one of the decisive areas of development. Teams that find the best compromise between active aerodynamics and tire thermal management will start with a huge advantage. And with rims free again, we might witness a new race for creative solutions, a bit like years ago with blowing systems or brake ducts. 2026 won't just be a regulatory revolution. It will also be a political and technical challenge to circumvent the imposed limits and find those details that make the difference. And speaking of 2026, we must also delve into the topic of Cadillac, because Perez is preparing a new test in view of 2026. The Mexican, just back from an event in the United States, has confirmed. I will first be in Charlotte and then in England. At headquarters, I will work on the simulator, but I will also drive a Formula 1 single-seater. I need to start preparing, especially physically. The neck has lost tone, and I need to get back to 100% to face the next season. The car chosen for Perez's test is the 2023 Ferrari SF23. According to rumors, Cadillac has reached an agreement with Maranello to use a car from last season as a testing previous car. A logical choice, given that from 2026 the American team will use Ferrari's power unit, along with the gearbox and suspension of the new 678. This move is not just a test for Perez. It serves the whole team to get familiar with the logistics, rhythms, and complexities of a real weekend. After simulating a race weekend at Monza with its staff, Cadillac is investing enormous resources not only to set up the 2026 car, but also to recruit technicians and acclimate the staff to the 24 grand pre-scheduled on the calendar. This test is a strong signal. Cadillac doesn't want to be a side team. It's building solid foundations and has chosen to rely on a Ferrari to learn right away how a winning project works. Perez, for his part, must prove he can still be competitive and start reacclimating his body to the stresses of a Formula 1. For me, it's a smart operation. Instead of waiting for 2026, Cadillac is taking advantage of a year in advance to reduce the learning curve. The collaboration with Maranello could be the key to not starting too far behind. We won't see front-page performances in these tests, but we'll understand if Cadillac truly has the seriousness and organization to become a competitive project. Finally, we must also talk about Stefano Domenicali's decision to recruit new professional stewards. Let's see everything in detail. For years, there has been discussion about the inconsistency in the verdicts of race stewards. The system based on volunteer stewards has led to contrasting decisions for very similar incidents. Domenicali knows this well and doesn't hide it. The steward system needs to be improved, and there must be more consistency in the judgments. Formula One is ready to invest to ensure professionalism and credibility in the championship. For this reason, he said they must find a balance between the FIA and Formula One. And Domenicali was direct. Today, Formula One is complex, technical, sporting, but also financial. A system of paid professionals is needed, and we are willing to do our part. He also added, we need to find a balance. FIA and Formula One must work hand in hand, but the teams must continue to have a say. The centrality of the F1 Commission needs to be strengthened. And Domenicali touches on two issues that Formula One can no longer postpone. Professional stewards are now indispensable. There have been too many incidents in recent years that have embarrassed Formula One with inconsistent penalties that have sparked more debate than the races themselves. Stability, competence, and continuity of judgment are needed. On the governance front, the risk is that the F1 Commission becomes a formal but not very effective body. If we really want to give more power to the teams, we must avoid decisions being blocked by those who have no room to maneuver, otherwise the system remains slow and ineffective. In summary, Domenicali is right. Formula One is growing in media and commercial terms. But if the issues of credibility and governance are not resolved, it risks harming itself. Professionals in race direction and a streamlined and authoritative commission would be two gigantic steps forward. Let me know in the comments your opinion on all the topics we covered in the video. How would you like to improve Formula One? I'm curious to read and respond to all your comments. As always, I remind you to leave a like, subscribe, and activate notifications so you don't miss any news about Formula One and Ferrari. That's all from Rasta. See you in the next video.